That horse was like an honor student who appeared in the prelude to the Sunday Silence whirlwind. The horse, named BubbleGumFellow, mainly excelled in middle-distance races, ridden by a top jockey wearing the prestigious Shade racing silks. Let's watch his outstanding racing performances in this video. Before we begin, let's start with some Japanese snacks. BubbleGumFellow is a male horse born in 1993. His sire is Sunday Silence, and his dam is Bubble Company. Sunday Silence is the strongest stallion that revolutionized the history of Japanese horse racing. BubbleGumFellow is a second crop foal of Sunday Silence. BubbleGumFellow's dam, Bubble Company, raced in both America and France during her career, winning only one race out of 12. She was mediocre as a racehorse, but her first crop foal, Candy Stripes, became a prominent stallion in Argentina, producing numerous Grade 1 horses. She also produced Intimist, who won a Grade 1 race in France. At the age of 14, Bubble Company was imported to Japan. She gave birth to BubbleGumFellow in her second year after arriving in Japan. BubbleGumFellow showed flexibility and a solid running style from a young age, indicating high expectations for him from an early stage. Furthermore, while BubbleGumFellow was still at the rearing farm, the first crop foals of Sunday Silence began to excel in races. Despite being only in their 2-year-old generation, their performance was promising enough to raise similar expectations for BubbleGumFellow. BubbleGumFellow was stabled at the Fujisawa stable. His main jockey was Okabe, who was a top jockey at the time. The Fujisawa stable was famous for not putting too much strain on the horses during training and for its policy of taking the time to develop the horses gradually. As a result, horses from the Fujisawa stable tended to have later debut races. However, because Fujisawa had high expectations for BubbleGumFellow, he was debuted a bit earlier, without fully completed training. This took place on October 7, 1995. His debut race was 1,800 meters on the Tokyo course. BubbleGumFellow received overwhelming support with odds of 1.3 to 1. The race began, and BubbleGumFellow tracked in 5th position from the front. The pace of the race was leisurely. He made a strong push in the final stretch, trying to overtake the horse ahead. However, due to the slow pace, the leading horse still had some energy left, making it difficult for him to pass. The finish line saw 3 horses neck and neck. BubbleGumFellow was slightly behind, finishing in 3rd place. 3 weeks later, he appeared on the same course. The distance was the same 1,800 meters as before. This time, BubbleGumFellow took the lead right after the start. He extended his lead in the final stretch and secured his first victory without ever relinquishing the lead. 3 weeks after his first victory, BubbleGumFellow appeared again in a race on the same course and distance. His third race was the Open Class Fuchu 2-year-old Stakes. In this race, BubbleGumFellow was the second favorite. When the race started, BubbleGumFellow positioned himself in 2nd place. The favorite, Sakura Speedo, was right behind him. Entering the final stretch, the battle for the lead was between BubbleGumFellow and Sakura Speedo. However, around the uphill section, BubbleGumFellow pushed away Sakura Speedo. He widened the lead and crossed the finish line with a 1-length advantage. BubbleGumFellow's consecutive victories led Okabe to suggest aiming for the Derby and participating in the 2,000-meter hopeful stakes, but Fujisawa chose the Grade 1 Asahi High Futurity Stakes instead. The reason for selecting this 1,600-meter race was, I want to see how BubbleGumFellow handles the shorter distance and if he gets flustered. On race day, BubbleGumFellow was supported as the favorite with odds of 2.6. As the race began, BubbleGumFellow's position was between third and fourth place. BubbleGumFellow remained calm on the inside throughout the race. As they passed the final corner and entered the home stretch, he responded to the jockey's signals by accelerating. Leading the pack was Asian Gaiman, who had made an early sprint. BubbleGumFellow raced towards Asian Gaiman. Around the last 100 meters, the two horses were neck and neck. And he crossed the finish line in first place, with a lead of 3/4 of a length. He secured his first Grade 1 title. Fujisawa's worries were needless. With this victory, BubbleGumFellow emerged as a leading contender for the classic races the following year. Indeed, among the generation 1 year older than BubbleGumFellow, which corresponds to the first crop of Sunday Silence offspring, 2 of the Triple Crown races had been won by Sunday Silence offspring. Furthermore, in many other races, Sunday Silence offspring achieved excellent results. With such a situation, it was natural for BubbleGumFellow to become a leading contender for the 1996 classic races. The next time BubbleGumFellow appeared at the racetrack was on March 24, in the Grade 2 Spring Stakes. BubbleGumFellow is the clear favorite. As the race started, BubbleGumFellow settled on the inside in second to last position. He gradually advanced, and with 1,000 meters remaining, he had moved up to around the middle of the pack. Due to being in the pack, BubbleGumFellow's path was narrow, but as he entered the final stretch, the path opened up. Then, with a speed unlike the other horses, he effortlessly took the lead. Before reaching the finish line, jockey Okabe had such an easy victory that he had to hold back the reins. This marked his 4th consecutive win. It was only natural that BubbleGumFellow would become the central figure in that year's classic races. However, accidents are inevitable. Just a week before the Satsuki show, after completing training, on April 5, it was discovered that he had a fractured sesamoid bone in his right leg. Since he was diagnosed with a 6-month recovery period, his participation in the Satsuki show was out of the question, and the Derby became hopeless as well. However, he recovered quickly, and by July, he was able to exercise again. And by August, he was able to return to the stable. The final classic race, the Kika show, is held in November, so there was a chance for BubbleGumFellow to participate as well. However, due to several reasons, BubbleGumFellow's participation in the Kika show was cancelled, and instead, training continued with the aim of the Tenno show autumn, which takes place a week before. One reason was that it suited his distance preference. It was determined that the 2,000-meter Tenno show autumn was more suitable for BubbleGumFellow than the 3,000-meter Kika show. Next, because BubbleGumFellow was seen as not inferior to Taiki Blizzard, another horse from the same stable, in terms of talent. Taiki Blizzard often finished in 2nd or 3rd place in Grade 1 races, but he was always a competitive horse, consistently placing near the top. Furthermore, trainer Fujisawa believed that the Tenno show, a race open to older horses, held more value than the Kika show, which is restricted to 3-year-olds. These are considered to be the reasons why BubbleGumFellow chose the Tenno show autumn as a 3-year-old. As a prelude to the Tenno show autumn, BubbleGumFellow participated in the Grade 2 Mainichi Crown. It was on October 6, 3 weeks before the Tenno show. Prominent older horses were not entered in this race, and BubbleGumFellow was the second favorite. The favorite was another 3-year-old horse, Taiki Fortune, who had won the Grade 1 NHK Mile Cup. When the race started, BubbleGumFellow raced in midfield. The pace was somewhat relaxed. Entering the final straight, BubbleGumFellow made a charge, but the horses ahead still had stamina left. He managed to pass several horses, but finishing 3rd was the best he could do. However, it was a commendable performance for his comeback race from the fracture. October 27, race day for the Tenno show autumn. However, on this day, trainer Fujisawa and the main jockey, Okabe, were not in Japan. They were away on an expedition because Taiki Blizzard was participating in the Breeders' Cup Classic. The substitute jockey was Ebina. While he has since achieved significant accomplishments, at that time, the young jockey had never won a Grade 1 race. And it was on the day of the Tenno Show race that Ebina first rode BubbleGumFellow. And the competition was formidable. Sakura Laurel had won all 3 races this year, defeating Triple Crown winner Narita Bryan in the Tenno Show Spring. Marvelous Sunday is on a 6-race winning streak, including 4 grade races. And Mayano Top Gun is a specialist in middle to long distances, having won the Kika Show, Arima Kinen, and Takarazu Kakinen. Among this lineup, BubbleGumFellow became the 3rd favorite. When the race started, BubbleGumFellow was in 3rd position. Right behind him was Mayano Top Gun. And further back was Marvelous Sunday. Sakura Laurel stumbled at the start and found itself towards the rear of the field. Entering the final straight, it became a battle of each horse's sprinting ability. Since the race pace wasn't fast, it favored the horses positioned at the front. BubbleGumFellow drew alongside Mayano Top Gun, and the two took the lead around the 200-meter mark. Marvelous Sunday and Sakura Laurel were also coming from behind. BubbleGumFellow didn't yield the lead to Mayano Top Gun and crossed the finish line. Although the margin wasn't large, it was a race that showcased his strength. Ebina clinched his first Grade 1 race victory. As he crossed the finish line, he raised his right hand in celebration. The Tenno Show did not have entries for 3-year-old horses between 1938 and 1986, but since the system changed, this victory marked the first by a 3-year-old. BubbleGumFellow managed to compete against champion-level older horses and win. His reputation soared, making him the 2nd favorite in his next race, the Japan Cup. Since the top favorite was the foreign horse, Hilisio, BubbleGumFellow was the top favorite among the Japanese horses. However, in this race, he showed no notable performance in the final stretch. He slowed down as if he had broken a bone and finished in a shocking 13th place. Fortunately, BubbleGumFellow did not have a fracture, but according to Okabe, he didn't feel like running that day. After BubbleGumFellow won the Tenno Show, an overseas tour was planned for him and his peer, Dance in the Dark. The plan included the Coronation Cup in June, the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Stakes in July, and the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe in October. However, this plan was cancelled due to his poor performance in the Japan Cup. After the Japan Cup, he took a break for about 6 months. BubbleGumFellow's next target was the Spring Grand Prix, the Takarazu Kakinen. As a preparatory race, he appeared in the Grade 2 Naru Aokinen. As a Grade 1 race winner, he had to carry a handicap of 59 kilograms. When the race started, BubbleGumFellow took up the 5th position. Entering the final stretch, he smoothly moved out from 3rd place and took the lead. He opened up a lead from the rest of the field and won by a margin of 2 lengths. It was an easy victory. 3 weeks later, on July 6, was the Takarazu Kakinen. BubbleGumFellow was the 3rd favorite. The main jockey Okabe, riding Taiki Blizzard, was replaced by Ebina once again to ride BubbleGumFellow for this race. The race began. BubbleGumFellow took a midfield position. The favorite, Marvelous Sunday, was in the back group. Around the 800-meter mark, BubbleGumFellow accelerated and moved up in position. At a similar timing, Marvelous Sunday also made a move. Entering the final stretch, the battle for the lead became between Taiki Blizzard and BubbleGumFellow. Marvelous Sunday was closing in from behind. With 100 meters remaining, the 3 horses were neck and neck. Marvelous Sunday had the momentum. The lead changed to Marvelous Sunday. BubbleGumFellow finished in 2nd place. After this race, he took a 3-month break and then competed in the Mainichi Crown. It was the race in which he had finished 3rd the previous year. BubbleGumFellow positioned himself in 3rd to 4th place. Without any significant changes, they moved into the final stretch. Due to the slow pace during the race, it turned into a sprint finish. BubbleGumFellow desperately chased the leaders on the outside. The horses in front also had plenty of stamina left, making it difficult to catch up. However, about 100 meters from the finish, BubbleGumFellow finally joined the battle for the lead and managed to pass them by a small margin. He crossed the finish line in first place. BubbleGumFellow made a promising start towards defending his title in the Tenno Show Autumn. On the day of the Tenno Show Autumn, BubbleGumFellow was the favorite at 1.5 times the odds. Following behind was the filly Air Groove. As the race started, Silence Suzuka immediately took the lead and built a significant advantage. BubbleGumFellow was in third place, while Air Groove was in the middle of the pack. After entering the final straight, Silence Suzuka slowed down due to a lack of stamina. BubbleGumFellow went after him. And then, Air Groove went to join BubbleGumFellow. With 200 meters remaining, the two horses were completely neck and neck. The rest of the field was 5 lengths behind them. They crossed the finish line together. Air Groove was slightly ahead. BubbleGumFellow faced Air Groove again in the Japan Cup a month later. In this race, BubbleGumFellow, Air Groove, and Pilsudski were the favorites. Pilsudski is a British horse with 5 Grade 1 victories. The race started, and Air Groove took a position in 4th or 5th place. Right behind her was BubbleGumFellow. And Pilsudski was on the inside in mid-pack. Entering the final straight, Air Groove aimed for the lead with 400 meters remaining, but Pilsudski surged ahead from the inside to take the lead. BubbleGumFellow desperately gave chase, but the gap didn't close, and he remained in third place. He crossed the finish line in third place. He did not compete in the year-end Arimakinen, retiring from racing after this race. His overall record is 7 wins in 13 races, including 2 Grade 1 races. Out of all 13 races, he finished outside the top 3 only in the 1996 Japan Cup. He was a horse known for his remarkable consistency in races. BubbleGumFellow became a stallion, but he hasn't produced many notable offspring. He also served as a shuttle stallion in Oceania, and from there, Rockabubble, who won the Breeders' Stakes in New Zealand, was born. BubbleGumFellow continued his stud duties, but his health declined in 2010, and he passed away on April 26 due to pneumonia. He was 17 years old. His premature death is unfortunate, but his pedigree is strong. That's the Plenty, a grandson of his Dam Bubble Company, won the 2003 Kika Show, and Deep Brillante, a great-grandson of Bubble Company, won the Derby in 2012. We can look forward to further success from this family lineage. That's all for this time. If you want to know more about Japanese horses, subscribe to this channel. Thank you.